Hi, Yaz here. Wanted to talk to you about the importance of number lines in this lesson and gradual release. If you've been doing Common Core for a while now, you've noticed how important number lines are. Very important to student understanding and conceptual building, especially when it comes to introducing integers. In the past, I have to admit, I don't feel like I've done a good enough job of showing kids how to do these problems, how to show these arrows on the number line. And when it comes time to do the task or the classwork, many times they are at a loss for how to begin. So I would like to highlight some common misconceptions in this video, as well as how I taught this lesson and how I gradually released the ability for my students to do these on their own. So if you look on the screen here, I started out with some problems which I showed myself. I said to kids that I would be showing them how to graph 8 plus -3 on the number line. First, many of them will be able to tell me or you that the first number indicates we go to +8. Usually they're able to do that even if it's a negative number, we go to a negative number. Where we start running into problems is what to do with the second integer. Some common mistakes you'll see is if students are released too early to do this on their own. The most common mistake I've seen is that they take the second arrow and they draw it to the -3 from 0. This does not show this problem accurately. So one of the first ideas I explain to students when I'm modeling for them is that the second number starts where we left off after graphing the first number. That's going to take some practice, which is why I complete additional problems with them. I also explain that the answer to this problem is the number that we end on. In this case, it's the +5. I make sure I complete some examples starting off with negative numbers, as you see here. And I also make sure at this point, after I've graphed -5, I ask students to notice how much we are adding on. Since we're starting from here, and before I draw this line, so we're going to get rid of it for now, I ask students to think about, all right, we're starting here. Is our answer going to be positive or negative? And then I ask them to explain to me, how do they know? Based on the second number and the way that the line is going to be drawn, how do we know that we end at a positive number? I'm trying to elicit kids' understanding that when we add on something larger, whose absolute value rather is larger than the first number, then we're going to pass 0 on the number line. Understanding the organization of the number this way is actually really difficult for students who have never been introduced to these concepts, which is why, again, it's so important to spend that time talking about it during the class notes. This is not a 5 or 10-minute procedure. This can be a 15-minute procedure, given that students are given time to think and talk to neighbors, think, pair, share, if you will. I would not be talking for 15 minutes. That's how I lose my kids really quickly. The gradual release doesn't actually occur. They're not allowed to do these completely on their own until I've reviewed several examples, including those with double lines, double arrows that go to the left. And then before, once again, they are released to do it on their own, I ask them to come up with some examples. For example, I might show them this image and say, write me a problem that could be represented using these lines. You can fill in the numbers at the bottom. And the idea here is, do students understand that this is going to be an addition problem with 2 negative numbers this way? So these are some ways that you can gradually release the concepts to students, and I still expected and did have students who needed additional supports during the classwork section. Hope that's helpful. Thank you.